Hello and welcome to OSU Professional and Continuing Education's webinar, Tracking Success in a Multi-Channel World, presented by Hallie Jansen of the Oregonian Media Group. My name is Amanda Geldof. I'll be hosting the webinar and helping to mediate questions. After I introduce Hallie, I'll go ahead and hand the reins over to her. Hallie Jansen is the Vice President of Marketing and Digital Solutions at the Oregonian Media Group. In her role as VP of Marketing, Hallie oversees business-to-business and business-to-customer marketing, advertorial content, and research for the Oregonian, Oregon Live, and Oregonian Media Group's local publications. Jansen joined the Oregonian in March 2013 after a 15-year career in digital marketing. She's held senior management positions at digital marketing agencies and most recently hails from Columbia Sportswear as their Director of E-commerce Marketing. In the past, Hallie consulted on digital marketing strategies for publishing clients such as PC World, Macworld, CIO, and local publications such as Seattle Magazine. Additionally, she's been an instructor of digital marketing since 2009, conducting classes at Portland State University, virtual through Online Marketing Institute, and now with Oregon State University. Hallie is a former president of SEM PDX and chair of SearchFest, SEM PDX's annual educational and networking event that attracts more than 400 attendees each year. Today, she's a board member and co-founder of the FIT Project, a nonprofit that connects underserved families with resources for fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle education. Welcome, Hallie. Thank you for presenting today.
Thanks, Amanda. Happy to be here. So I'm assuming you're going to give me the reins here, and then I can do the slideshow. Great. Well, thanks, everybody. Welcome. And today we're going to talk a little bit about tracking your audience, audience targeting, and everything that you can do within targeting a certain audience. So we're going to kind of focus in on specifically that.
Okay, so Hallie, it's actually not letting me hand over the controls, so just go ahead and let me know and I'll click to the next slide whenever you're ready.
Great, let's go to audience targeting slide. And then we'll click in. I'm going to talk about the next slide, and we'll talk about reaching audiences and where those various audiences are. And I'm going to go one by one to give everybody a framework of what we're talking about today. Audiences can be everywhere. So if we look on online display, and then I'll move into the different channels that we target in our audience targeting. Online display, we can do that through standard and even high impact digital ads. So a standard ad would be your standard rectangle ad or leaderboard, and then the high impact ads might be a digital takeover, maybe something that has flash or dynamic targeting in it as well. So those are the differences in online display. And then specifically within audience targeting, I'm going to, of course, go deeper into this one, but just how can you target a certain audience? It might actually be that you want to target a certain demographic. You might want to target somebody that's been looking at contextual content on the site. You might want to target somebody that is demographic targeting, like I said, or geo-targeting. So you can get real specific in the audiences that you want to target. And I'll go more in depth in that later on in the presentation today. And then you can also target on section and site sponsorship. So you might even want to, maybe you have a sports enthusiast and that's the person that you want to target. You might target something within sports on a channel. You might want to sponsor a particular site that you know that your audience is going to be going to. Another type of online display that you can target with is video, so doing your own videos or even doing just video clips before it, some pre-roll or post-roll. Mobile targeting, you can do mobile ads, banner ads, and in-app ads as well. And then email newsletters, so that's another one. We've always kind of heard off and on throughout the years that email is dying. It's very much alive. We see a lot of return on our email marketing, and I know that we work with clients that do work with outside vendors on email marketing and have great return on that as well. So sponsoring email newsletters, putting advertising in them, but also content marketing, which we'll talk about in a minute, but doing content marketing in those emails as well, so providing content in newsletters that go out. So that's a little brief description of some things that you can do with an online display. I'm not going to go into all of those. Those could be webinars themselves. But let's move on to print. So print, again, is very much alive. We have a lot of opportunity and targeting that we can do within print. And taking it at the kind of the same step that I did with online display is the standard, or even doing high impact print ads. So the standard ad might just be an ad in the newspaper. It might be an ad in a magazine, just kind of a standard half page, quarter page. Then a high impact print ad actually might be a full page. That's definitely the bigger your ad, the better. So a high impact print ad might be a larger one like that. But then even getting bigger and kind of dominating the package that you're trying to do within print, you can do spadias, which are half pages, basically takeovers of the entire paper. So you might see that. You also could see that in a magazine. I've seen that done too, where you just have kind of a fold over, taking over the cover of it. And those are very high impact because they draw people in immediately. And you know, it's great if you can have a call to action as well on that and get some return. O-prints are something that we do, so we can also do print advertising, little inserts into the publications, and that's another one that I've seen done in magazines as well, not just our newspaper. Then just the way that you bag the paper or the magazine, you could do a poly bag or put a topper on top of that, which is an insert that's not inserted inside, but it's topped on. So again, it's a pretty high impact print channel there and print product. Moving on to some more less traditional, but I would even say maybe kind of more traditional in our world, our digital world right now, search engine optimization and search engine marketing, and then website development. So search is definitely here to stay. We've seen great success with search engine optimization, so that's getting your site to rank on the search engines at no cost. You're not paying for clicks, you're just naturally, organically optimizing your site to rank for particular keywords. So that's another way that you can reach your audience. And then search engine marketing is when you're actually paying for a click or paying to be in the results. We get asked a lot, you know, why do I need to do search engine marketing and pay when I get when I have a great organic ranking or free ranking on a search engine? And the reason is that you want to have as much real estate and hold as much real estate as you can on that first page. So we always recommend to do both of those. Another benefit of doing search engine marketing is that you can test what your audiences are searching for and what they're clicking on, and maybe even what they're converting on, and taking that knowledge, that keyword knowledge that you're learning, and putting that into your SEO strategy. So maybe you might create another page because you've learned that this keyword performs very well. You're going to create another page on your site that's pretty specific around that keyword or that theme. And then, of course, website development falls into search, and it's very important to have your site optimized, not only for search engines, but for usability, for mobile search as well, mobile usability, all very important things, as we're very much a on-the-go society and using our mobile phones even more than our desktop at times. Moving on to social. So social media optimization, so optimizing what you're doing within the social channels, Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest. You might have a need. Your audience might be using Pinterest and Instagram. Many of those platforms you can buy advertising on, similar to what I was just talking about with search engine marketing. But you can also organically hold a presence where you are interacting within, you know, organic posts with your target audience. And interacting with them on those social media platforms. And then reputation monitoring, I put this into social because it really is a two-way street to improve your reputation and to hold your reputation. So talking with your customers and your clients, making sure that your listings in the search engines or on other sites like Yelp, if you happen to be a retailer or restaurateur, you want to have really good reputation and people talking great things about you. If they're not, you want to be addressing it perhaps on that platform. Sometimes it's not appropriate, but sometimes it is to kind of clear the air or set misconceptions straight. You can do that, of course, on Facebook and within Twitter too, but it's just monitoring and optimizing your reputation. The other one I want to address here in reaching your audiences is content marketing. You've also probably heard it, native advertising. And that's pretty new on the scene the last few years, and something that our company has been focusing on, but something that I've also been talking a lot about in my class for Oregon State is the act of sponsoring content. So you might hire a company to write a post for you, and then you put it on a website and label it as sponsored content. That's kind of the rules within Google, is you want to make sure that you're telling Google what's paid content and what's not paid content, what's free content, or editorial content, I should say. So you can have somebody write something for you. Branded content, so there's many companies that will write content for you, such as webinars or white papers, one-sheets, blog posts, emails, and then that would be branded content. So we're doing quite a bit of work within content marketing, and it's definitely something that you can target your audience with just by pure nature of putting it on that website. But you can also augment content marketing and online display to even further target that audience. So maybe you do some demographic targeting within that sponsored content that you posted. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do within that. And then finally, reaching audiences within classifieds. So that's kind of old school, but it's definitely old school that's become new school. Automotive, another category that we focus on is real estate, and another one is recruitment or jobs. And so if you happen to be somebody in that space, there's a lot of opportunity to target people that are shopping for cars, shopping for car service, aftermarket parts. There's a lot of things that you can do with online display, but then you can even do it within print too for categories like that. Let's move to the next slide, and we'll talk even more about some of the different ways that we target audiences. And I'm going to go into the next slide where I really just talk about how we work, and I think it's important. I'm not giving a webinar on the Oregonian Media Group, but I think it's important as a media buyer and as a marketer, a digital marketer, that you know what you're buying and where the information is coming from, the information on the audiences is coming from. So many people don't know that we actually happen to be part of a national company that's Advance. That's our Advance Publications is our parent company name, and we partner with Advance Digital and 11 other local media groups across the country, and we're all working together with editorial products like online sites like Oregon Live, and then also editorial products like the Oregonian newspaper and some of our other smaller publications. And what we're doing online, though, is that we are of course, focused on our audience. We want to connect with the community and really provide fresh and relevant hyperlocal content. And I'm going to tell you how we do that if we go to the next slide, and kind of the magnitude of what we're doing. So it's really important when you look for somebody that you're going to be placing ad buys through, whether it be through somebody like Oregonian Media Group, or if it's even through Google, when you go and you pick the sites that you want to target and the audiences you want to target within those sites, is you're looking at page views, so how many people come to their site and how many page views they look at. So the unique visitors are important, and also page views. We are part of Condé Nast, so Advance our parent company owns Condé as well, and all of these other great titles and magazines. You can see that. And so that gives us the opportunity of having a very large number of page views and a very large number of cookies being served and digital ads as well. And so you always want to look for something like that when you're placing your ad buy and targeting your audiences. You know, how big of an ad buy do you have? You know, how big of an audience will you be able to serve that to? The next one is if we talk about data and where we get data. So if we go to 2 more slides, and I'll talk about first-party data and what that means. So when you're buying on a site and you want to figure out audience data and how that is collected, we have first-party data, meaning that we are getting that data from ourselves and not from a data provider, and that's pretty important. Google, if I use Google as an example, they have first-party data on their search engines because they're owning their search engines. They have data from sites that they own as well, but they also partner with sites, even like ours, where they're getting second and third party data. So it's different. You always want to get the cleanest data possible, and that's why we would recommend looking at first party data on the target audience that you're looking for. So if we're looking at this example of an article, there's different ways that we're collecting data and different data points. So if somebody chooses a location, we're collecting that in the cookie. If they share a story, we're looking at that as well. If they search something, the different interaction that they have within the story, so if they're clicking on different stories, if they're going to other stories as well, we're collecting that. How they're interacting with the advertising, how they're interacting with content tags. So we tag all of our content so that there's a hierarchy that says, all right, we're looking at maybe an example here would be just Mount Hood stories and Mount Hood travel stories, or maybe we're looking at Eastern Oregon travel stories. So we might tag those differently as Eastern Oregon versus Mount Hood. And so that's something we're pulling into our data. Comments that people are leaving behind, interaction with that comment, and then the device type. That's something that we're looking at too. So if you're wanting to target, you know, users that are highly engaged in mobile as well, that's something that you will be able to find out through somebody that has first-party data like this. Let's move on to the second and next one. I can tell you a little bit more about how we collect some other data points. So cross-platforms, I just showed how we collected on our desktop. So we're looking at our own first-party data. But you can also get third-party data, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We're looking at geographic information, so where they are. We're pulling in demographic information, and we can get that through ourselves, but we can also get that through third parties as well. We buy that, and that's something that you would want to look for. You know, where are they getting that demographic data? What sources are they buying it from? A lot of times we get it through credit card companies too. Content, how they're interacting on the content, and then behavioral, what are they doing within the content? Not just what they're looking at, but how are they looking at it. And so those are some really important things to do when you're looking at your audience on the desktop. If I go over to the left and I look at the mobile web, these are all just different platforms within mobile. I would also say geo-targeting is really important. Latitude and longitude is something that you'd want to make sure that you're targeting appropriately within mobile web, especially if you have a retail brick and mortar store or a restaurant or something that you can serve ads to within a radius. That would be a great audience targeting way to reach your folks. And then apps, pretty much similar to the mobile web, but apps again have their own ad serving technology but can do some audience targeting as well. So all important things to know. If we move to the next one, I can talk a little bit about how we're building that audience. And I use the example here with somebody that has political interest, and I'm looking at Washington County. So the first thing that I do is I have an ad, which is a high impact ad because that one is something we call a pencil ad, and so that will be an expanding billboard. So it'll be a tiny little pencil at the top if it's not expanded, and then you click to expand, and then it will show the entire ad as you're seeing it now. So that's a high impact type of an ad within the sliding billboard. So we placed it on the news section and within politics as well. And then the next build, if you just click down, we can look at how this person might be reading the content. So they're reading the content on Washington County. So we know that we want to target somebody that's in Washington County that has a political interest, so we might put the ad there as well. And then the final one, clicking down, we know that they've accessed it via desktop or laptop. So that might be something that we put into our cookie pool and audience targeting and know that, okay, that's how they got there. We might show a different ad on, of course, on mobile as well. So it's just building all of that audience targeting in order to have a more effective ad. Then the next one, if we click over and we look at building lookalikes, so we have a data management platform, which is a DMP, and so that's the platform that's managing all of our data. And it's collected all that data that I just talked about, where they're looking at it, what device they're using, what content they're looking at, geo-targeting, where they're looking at it, like I said. And it's putting that information together and it's saying, all right, now let's build a lookalike audience. Let's go find more of these people. And so one way to build a lookalike audience is actually just to look at your opportunity to re-message that audience. That's the first step. So somebody might have clicked an ad, and we're showing the University of Oregon here, but we're, somebody might have clicked an ad on that, and now we're showing a pixel that has fired, and now we're going to be showing the ad that's going to be remessaging off of that site. If we click to the next one, the next build, we know that we're getting first-party data from there that the user has visited our website within our network, and so we can scrub against that as well. And then the final things are nested behaviors. So we know, all right, we want to target even more on this behavior, so we know that somebody is interested in education. They might have the highest level of education, college, university, might have graduate. So those are all things that we put together, and we've built this lookalike audience based on what we know of the audience we just served an ad to. The next thing, if we want to go to understanding audiences, a little bit more things that we can understand, like I talked about, is devices, when they use their device, usage per hour. We can also understand some things like income and interests from this data that we're collecting. And then just the sheer inventory, you're going to want to know, like I said, of what kind of cookie pool do you have, what kind of audience would you have when you're serving on these different sites. And you'll want to look at the number of unique visitors, the number of page views you're going to serve across, the number of impressions, the number of times your ad might be served. The number of impressions is always, usually I should say, higher than page views, just because you've got several different ad positions on a page view. So you might have two ads that would fire. If you had a leaderboard and a side billboard, those two might fire at the same time, and you have more impressions. Those would be counted as two impressions. So these are all things that you're going to want to look for when you're targeting an audience, as pulling out some of this information to build an even more effective audience. Let's go to the next one, and we look at how can we distribute that audience across different platforms. So we've pulled in some Oregon Live information. Maybe we're pulling in some Condé Nast information, and then some third-party data like I've talked about. We're getting some of that from credit cards, maybe some other types of data that we're using. Putting it into our platform, and then we can actually put it into using email. We can do some social media off of that. in responsive web. Programmatic buying would be a whole separate webinar in itself, but just the idea of buying based on a sheer CPM and the target, then you can go out and get remnant advertising or some advertising that's kind of lower cost. Not always the best, not always the best audience targeted. You've got to be careful with that. And then video, and I talked about native advertising. So it's really just taking all this information and now using it in each of those channels that we first talked about. So if we click onto the next one and we talk about this audience that we're looking at, and maybe we're looking for a household decision maker, you always want to know how big of the size of the audience it is. You can find the decision makers based on certain targets within that data that you want to look at. Again, you might even find unique visitors in Portland. Maybe that's the thing that you want to find. And then maybe you want to use MasterCard shopping data as that third-party data. So this is just an illustration on how you can build your custom audience of unique visitors. And so if I just looked at that pretty quickly, based on the note at the bottom that tells us the audience size, is looking at people that have interacted with shopping content 3 times in the last 30 days. So these are all things that when you're building your audience you want to look for. And now we have maybe 750,000 unique visitors that we can put in that platform and then go out and find them through these different channels. So I put together a persona for you on the next 2 slides, and personas are really important, and a lot of times that's how I even start. I look at who am I trying to target before I even start doing some of the geekier things I just talked about when we're looking at, how am I going to target and what data sources am I going to use to target that person. We use a really expensive service from Nielsen called Prism. And I haven't always had the luxury of having Prism as my source for persona information, and this drills down into a household. Actually, we have household data on everybody within the Portland DMA, and so I know that not everybody has access to that. But what I would do is I would even go and do some surveys, survey my customers, survey my clients, post on social media to ask them questions, because ultimately you want to know if you're building a persona around somebody like this guy named Peter. We want to know who he is, what his age is, kind of where he is in his buying cycle. And we put this together. Actually, this is an example that we did for a client for us. California Closets, actually, and we wanted to find out different personas of people that would be buying. And one of them was Peter. We also used a gal named Susan. We named her Susan. But what does Peter want to do? Why would he even want to buy from California Closets? And so we thought, all right, he's a family guy. Maybe he's moving into a new home. What does his family do? And then, we talked about they've got all this gear. They love being outside, and we were trying to think of all right, well, how would he use California Closets? And we did the same thing with another persona. I usually put 2 or 4 different personas together, and things I address beyond just kind of the highline statement of what I've said about Peter being a dad, family moving into a new home. But I want to figure out, all right, what does he do? What does he read? What do they do as a family? I want to find out what he buys and how much he spends on stuff like that. And so these are all things I've found by using our database Prism, but I can also just talk to people. I can also just survey my users. I can also read research reports that maybe Google has done. Pew Internet Study is another one that we look at a lot. You can find all kinds of research on different buyers depending on what industry you're in. Peter's goals and Peter's fears. So I always want to start with, what is Peter trying to, what is he trying to do? What is he trying to reach? And then what might be a fear of his? Because then I want to see if our solution will address his goal and address some of those fears. So if we take a look at the California Closet example that I'm talking about right now, we're looking at his goal that he wants to, research. He wants to actively look at his different options. So he's not going to be somebody that's going to be quick to buy, but he's going to look into it. He wants to have a streamlined living space. It seems like he might just have so much stuff all over the place, and he just really wants to have it streamlined. And he also wants to have a personal space. He might want to have a custom solution. So that would be his goals. You can think of all kinds of different goals maybe for Peter. His fear that his stuff is going to take over his life. He's got kids, they accumulate stuff like none other. He also is very busy and he doesn't have time. We talk about he's on the move. They're playing tennis and golf and they belong to a fitness club. He's busy, but he also wants to research the options as his goal. He's very research oriented. So we have to balance that out by not giving him too much information, but enough information so that he doesn't feel overwhelmed, but empowered by the research options we're giving him. Put in there, will it impress his friends? He has expensive taste, high affinity for watches, so he might want to, kind of impress folks with this great new solution that he's buying. And then, of course, he wants to hope it lasts, so he is buying expensive things because they do last a longer time. So this is just an example of a persona. You can put these together, like I said, free. You can use expensive services like I talked about, but it's really good just to start with who are you targeting beyond just the channels that you're targeting, but who are you targeting? And then the next slide, if we look at it, now we can overlay it and figure out, this is what you would do if you were trying to work with a partner on audience targeting, is you would say, all right, now go find me Peter. I've got this great persona and now I need you to go find this person for me. So then when we look at it, we can say, all right, we have 280,000 unique visitors that fit this Peter profile on our site, which is first-party data. And we've got 1.5 million uniques that actually happen to be located in Portland. And then we've got some premium third-party data like the Condé Nast network, which we talked about, or even some of the MasterCard data. And we're building a total of 750,000 uniques that we're targeting. So again, just kind of how you're going to get to that, that solution. So this brings me to the end of the webinar and end of the talk. Just wanted to go through, just kind of wrap up the conversation today of, there's many different ways that you can target your audience on many different platforms, and I think it's really important to look for a partner, and even as you're buying on your own, it's look for a solution that's going to help you figure out the persona, the person that you're targeting, and then mirror that and match that with the opportunity and the availability that they have on their site to marry that all together. And you can, again, you can do it in very expensive ways. You can also do it on your own. You can do it on social. You can do it in print. You can do it on digital. But I think there's just a lot of opportunities to go out and target your audience, just more than we've ever had in this space. So I'm really excited about it. You guys can email me or give me a call, tweet at me. If we go to the next slide, you can actually see my information. And if you have any questions, yeah, give me a call. Amanda, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's check and see if we have any questions from the group. Let's see if I can. Okay, feel free to use the chat session if you have a question. Okay. Yes, you'll receive an email if you've attended that will have a recording of this session. It will also be available on the OSU PACE website, which again, you'll receive via email. Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, I guess we will close it up then. Thank you again, Hallie, for presenting that, and thank you to everyone who has attended. Have a great holiday.